Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross and today I'm going to discuss the 10th edition reveals. Got quite a few interesting things to talk about here. I did expect Adepticon to have quite a few reveals. Some of them I anticipated. I don't know if I anticipated 10th edition to be revealed its entirety, but then again, it is only a few months away, so I suppose it kind of makes sense. Lots of things to talk about here, so let's get into it. I'm going to start off by looking at how the game is changing and I glance at a few things here. So, Games Workshop is reacting to two major complaints, and it's good that they actually acknowledge this. So the first one being is the game is far too bloated, and I don't think anyone can argue against this. It is very bloated at this stage, where if you play multiple armies, which many people do, some people just play one army and then may switch between them, as in they may collect one, then sell up and get another one. But I know quite a few people and they generally have two, maybe three armies that they do like to play. And trying to remember your own rules for all these armies that you like to play is difficult enough, but trying to remember opponents' ones does make this game really difficult to play. So looking at this and admitting it's a problem is quite good. And the second one is that it's difficult for new players to actually get into the game because it is so bloated and fairly difficult. A few people might be a little bit pessimistic here and think, well, that's them trying to look at a way of monetizing new players. Ultimately, I do think that having new players come into the game is always healthy, and I think that for most games it is good to have new people come in. It just builds, well, different people to play against, a lot more interesting. That's just personally how I feel. Some quotes we saw, we've listened and the new edition has been simplified but not simple. Now we have heard the word simplified, simple, etc. in various times and editions in the past, and it's worked, it hasn't worked, and then the bloat takes over, so it's nothing new there, but it was interesting to see that they've said simplified but not simple. And that important part of saying but not simple is good, because we don't want a game that is just too easy to understand. You know, we don't want one that's just doesn't require too much thinking. So it's a healthy line. They need to work on that, and hopefully they've acknowledged that. It seems much of the initial rules will be free, something asked for by the community. Competition internet sites may have pressured them to do this. So yeah, I think that's a big one, because let's face it, a lot of the rules are easy to get online. And Games Workshop need to react to this. It's something they're probably not entirely happy with, but it is something they need to acknowledge. It is happening. So having the rules free is, to start with, a good thing to streamline into the new edition. I don't think it will be forever the way going forward. Would surprise me. After all, we now have points that are free, and that's something I said years ago they should have done. I am very glad to see that. Whether we'll get to see all the rules free in the future, I have no idea. I personally think they should. And then if you want the codexes or what's maybe coming forward with cards, that is an optional extra. I think that would be a good thing. It means that, you know, you'd be able to easily access through Games Workshop their rules. You want to see if an army is up to you, you can see them easily online. You know, if you were to go into store, you'd be able to see them. Usually there's display codexes that you can have a peruse of. But I just think it'd be easier for both new players and old players, that you can easily reference the rules online, see what you want, and see if maybe a new army is up for you. But that is something to be seen whether they carry it on going forward for when codexes come out. But certainly at the beginning they are going to be free, which is good. Another quote, datasheet rules all fit on a single card. So this is important that they mention datasheets on cards. Now I think Age of Sigmar works a wee bit like this, that you can have your data sheets on cards, and I'm a huge fan of this. I think we did this for Knights or Chaos Knights at some point, and I just think that's a really good plan, so that if you have selected certain units, you just get cards that you want, and that makes referencing a lot easier, because you don't need to go through the books and stuff and check. You just get the cards and go, oh, this is how it works. Turn structure, army selection, morale, terrain, mission, the way in which characters interact with. These are all huge areas of change that they're addressing. Morale and terrain in specific have been an area that I feel they've recently really struggled with. It's just an area I don't know if they've been entirely happy with. and character interacting with units is something I'm very intrigued to see how that works, because we've seen in a way that it's become a bit homogenized with just the, well, this character offers reroll ones to hit, and I'm just very intrigued what their ideas for that. That'll be a very interesting change. World Eaters does seem to be what we'll be seeing going forward in terms of format, so a lot of people were intrigued by how the World Eaters worked. Overall, I thought it was actually quite good. I thought the weakness of the World Eaters was the sheer fact that it was their more unit variety that was lacking, that made the codex not interesting or as competitive. They were also facing against armies with a lot of resources, both in terms of rules and units. So it's not really a question of was the weakness the way the book was laid out. I think that how the book was laid out was fine, and if we see generic stratagems that allow all the armies to benefit from, I think that might be a really strong way of going forward. But again, I'm speculating there. More reactive abilities taking place in the opponent's turn, I think that's quite a good thing. It'll mean that, you know, instead of your opponent maybe getting first turn and just rolling away causing damage, you will actually have some counterplay to do in this, which is quite good. So I think we can see in the Termagant's data sheet that they offered as a sample that they had a reactive ability that does kind of give this idea. So it'll be intriguing to see how this goes forward. And boarding / combat patrols are ways to play along with Crusade, and apparently Crusade has actually been quite popular in a lot of ways. I don't really play that so much, but it's exciting to see that they are going forward with these. So that's quite good, different ways to play. I don't play too many different ways to play at the moment, but I do know some people who do, and it's just good to know that those ways are going to be supported. We all knew that in a new edition there are going to be new Space Marines, and let's face it, Games Workshop being one of the leakiest ships that ever leaked, we did hear a lot of rumours of what will be released, and we all knew Terminators getting released, and people thought it was going to be Primaris Terminators. What I didn't expect, I never heard rumours of this, some people might have, is that it was just going to be regular Terminators updated. Now, other than maybe a Librarian in Terminator armour, the ambiguous Black Templar Castellan, whether it wasn't Primaris, and Castellan Crow, I don't think there's been any other non-Primaris models released since Primaris came out back in 8th edition. So, very intriguing to see that. Now, they have stated that Firstborn Marines and Primaris Marines can wear Terminator armour, so they're a bit of both, which is interesting. I know there's like a size difference between Primaris Marines, so some people are saying, how do they fit inside there? But like, it's a game, big bulky armour, I guess they can work around that in some way. Largely from the community, I'd say this has been heavily welcomed though, just people really happy to see that they are taking old iconic models that were considered possibly going to get written out and updating them, and I think that is really, really good. They are very iconic, they're important to the game, such as Space Hulk, where they play an important part. Will we see a new box set of Space Hulk? I'd quite hope so. Great game when I played it. We do have Tyranids and we do have Terminators. That's usually a good sign of what what we need, the recipe to make Space Hulk. I suppose it's more Gene Stealers you need than anything else. And I'd say it's likely we're probably going to see Assault Marines updated as well. That's purely speculation, but really it kind of goes hand in hand in that one, so that'll be really cool to see them as well. Now there's a big question of what other Firstborn units might we see. Would you want to see Tactical Marines, Assault Marines and Devastators updated? I think some of them may have been updated, maybe in 5th and 6th edition. I could be wrong on that, maybe 7th. I'm not entirely sure when the Tactical Assault and Devastators were updated. But would you like to see them updated? I think many people who are Firstborn fans might like to see them get updated. Maybe, maybe not. But I'm not a Marine player myself, so I don't know how I feel on that one. But I always like to see some iconic units updated. Big question on this one is Grey Knights. Now, me and David thought about this a lot. I told him, no way, Primaris are the way forward. They are not if they're going to get new units for Grey Knights, they are not going to be Firstborn. But then we had Castellan Crow, and now we have these Terminators that can be Firstborn. Very, very intrigued to see how that one shakes out, to be honest. Grey Knights are probably largely due a fairly big update themselves. I think it's a bit over time. I think many of the actual specific Marine forces do need updates. The Black Templar one was great, Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Grey Knights, all very cool if we could see them going forward. I think when it comes to Space Marines as a whole, once we get some jump troops in there, that'd be really, really good. I don't know what else I'd want. Maybe some updated flyers might be good, but really I'd really want to see some focus on their Legion specific stuff. However, at the moment we see these Terminators, I think it's a great thing. I think the models are iconic, cool, they didn't mess about with them too much, and the community seems happy. Let's then move on to the other side of the potential box set that we're getting. That would be the Termagants. Now, I assume there's going to be a box set because they always like to release one there. And that's really good. Termagants along with Hormagaunts are very old models, correct me if I'm wrong here, but they were released way back in 3rd edition and badly need a redesign. Games Workshop have been great at updating HQ and troops. I said maybe at the back of maybe the start of 8th edition, I always think that what they should have done is update their HQs and update their troops, seeing as that is an area you solidly begin with, especially back in 7th edition. And Games Workshop over the years have been great to update this. They've updated Orc Boys, though many people are a bit negative on them, but they did get an update. Eldari Guardians, Necron Warriors, Chaos Warriors, and also Special Characters have all seen quite a lot of updates recently, so it sort of goes hand in hand that Termagants getting updated seems like a good idea. Let's face it, I know many people with hundreds of these old models, let's face it, they've had decades to collect them, and they're probably now going to add a few more to their ranks, so get busy painting many, many more of these. Overall, as far as I can see, the details were a wee bit lacking on what else we're going to see with the Tyranids, but it's from any indication of what we've seen before, when they are sort of a flagship army that's coming along with the new edition, there will be plenty of additions to go ahead. Although 5th, 6th and 7th edition were actually fairly generous Tyranids, they were many years ago, and 8th and 9th only saw one model in the Parasite of Mortrex as far as I'm aware. One model in 2 editions, that's 6 years and only having one model, which is quite painful. Tyranids are a faction with a large number of kits, and some of them hold up well. See, they're big creatures, I've always said, they still kind of look great, but the small stuff is what is really, really lacking. I don't like the Gene Stealers, and I don't know if that's maybe a controversial take. I really, really don't like them. I think they just need a bit of an update, something to... I know they're, again, like Terminators, an iconic unit that you probably don't want to mess about with the particular design. It's maybe just me on that one, but an update to Gene Stealers would be good. Maybe they're more one that people might not want to do so. But hey, there's still plenty of potential there. And when it comes to an army like Tyranids, your imagination, or at least Games Workshop, can run wild. These are, I suppose in 4K you can say that in general, but this is ones that absorb biomass and adapt. That is a huge amount of potential. These creatures that evolve can just about have anything your imagination comes up with. But there's one area I'd say that Tyranids are hugely lacking in, and that is a Lord of War choice. Now, some people say, it's not really needed, and I say you're wrong, but then again, this is a game where we can have opinions. I think that we need something that is huge, something like the Lord of Skulls, is it? For World Eaters and Chaos, or even Knight equivalent. Imagine you had a variety of different Knight equivalent Tyranids, that maybe there would be an option of, instead of running small units and everything, you could actually field just gargantuan sized creatures for Tyranids. A Knight version of Tyranid army list. I think that would be really, really cool, and I don't think it'd be that difficult to at least get the building blocks of doing so. Maybe you think of it a bit like the Chaos Knight ones, where you could have 3 or 4 of these giant Tyranid models, and maybe have your Carnifex and things working as war dogs in a way. I think that'd be really cool, but I'd love to see a Lord of War choice for Tyranids. That would be absolutely awesome. And we finally come to possibly the big reveal, and it is of course Lionel L. Johnson's return. I made the joke of not even a secret the Dark Angels could keep, because let's face it, it had been hinted at for ages by editions, there had been rumours of this happening for a while, and it is great to see it finally happen. Roberto Gilman has had the Imperium under his control since, I believe, his release back in March 2017. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but it was just before 8th edition, which would have been about that summer. So 6 years he's had it on his own, but now the line will have his say. And in terms of narrative, I could not be more excited. This could bring a lot of conflict into the Imperium himself. I don't know 30k lore so much, but I do know that the line and Roberto Gilman kind of butt heads it a few times, particularly about the Imperium Secundus. And I am really excited to see what he has to say on things. You know, it's not just, you know, I know a few people might have had things to say to Gilman, the things they may have disagreed with, but if there's another character that is on an equal stead, another son of the Emperor, well, that's going to raise a bit of interesting narrative. Concerning the model, I absolutely love it. Some might say it's a little bit basic, but I disagree, and I mean that more in just like the pose of it. It's simple but great. There is these optional helms, and I love it. Particularly, I don't really like the ones without the helmet on. I love the helmet with cloak. I love the wings in the helmet. Generally, those are my two favourite, but people also making jokes about him looking like Charles Dance, which is hilarious. I can see that. Very, very good. He is equipped with the Emperor's shield. Now, I didn't even realise the Emperor had a shield, but apparently he does. Again, I don't know 30k narrative so much. But a new sword. He might have to have a word with a certain character who's running about with his, apparently, to get that back. But either way, he does have a new one there. The lion is mentioned as being a skilled fighter, duelist and hunter of monsters. And this is an intriguing one that we saw a lot of in the images of Guilliman poring over images of the galaxy and how things are going. And Guilliman can't be everywhere at once. So if he's managing the conflicts on a larger scale, maybe the lion can take the fight to some of the conflicts. And I like to think that maybe in that sense that the lion will work in a different way. Less buffs to his troops. Now I believe he will offer some, of course, he is a skilled tactician as well. But maybe it'll be he doesn't hit so hard. After all, he's not wielding some massive hammer that's used to just butcher everything in sight. It's a sword and shield. Maybe he'll be able to survive and outlast his opponents, playing a bit of the long game, which I'd really, really like. Hopefully we'll see some updated Dark Angels units as well, similar to the Black Templars. I think that'd be really good. And I have never collected a Loyalist Legion before. I have dabbled. I had some Death Watch, and I really only bought like a unit or two, and then I just moved on to another project. I just didn't have time to really start them. But that may change. Dark Angels are one of my favourite legions. I suppose that might be the heretic in me talking, which popular and unpopular opinion there. I like Death Watch, I like Black Templars, but Dark Angels, I just love the paint scheme, and I love cloaks on them. Not a big fan of Death Watch, I don't like the cream colour, but I love the cloaks, and if we could get more units that are Dark Angel specific, with cloaks, along with being led by the lion, well, I think I might finally move from my heretical ways, though I'll still always collect Chaos Space Marines. But still, the lion is here, and what a model it is. And I think that is where I'll call it for the major announcements from Adepticon and 10th edition. Now I know there was a few other things I'll shout out to. There was the Kill Team as well, which had League of Vulcan versus Beastmen, if there's some potential in that. We saw the Jump Troop League of Vulcan, and I believe that kind of confirms there'll be a second wave of release, similar to what we saw with Sisters and Lumineth Elves, that they got one bit of release, then they got a second one to really round out their amount of variety they've got. So I think we'll see that at some point. Again, speculation that side, but I've speculated that for a while as well. I think I did a video on it. And then we also saw Beastmen, which people were saying is really, really cool. I suppose that kind of fits when we had Zangors. We saw that kind of idea. I would love a Lost and Damned army. I played Lost and Damned in Eye of Terror. I had so many zombies, I had Lehman Russes, etc. Because that's how the Lost and Damned kind of worked back then. And I really love that. That would be really, really cool. I'd love Traitor Astra or Traitor Guard. That'd be really, really cool, but again, we're just seeing Beastmen. That's sometimes the kill teams that they just have these soul armies. I think you had the Geller Puck's army, that was a kill team as well. So I'm not reading too much into that when it comes to them. I thought the Age of Sigmar stuff was cool as well. Seraphim, I forget their name, but Lizardmen essentially. I love the new dinosaur, the leader of that, the riding ones, very, very cool. I really think that is an army that just needs a bit of an update, and they are looking very, very promising as they're moving forwards. And we saw some of the cities of Sigmar, so the humans within the Age of Sigmar universe. I thought it was very lacking that we didn't have humans from the get-go. I think when you're playing fantasy stuff, having humans and seeing how their iconography and their forces work when they're fighting these, you know, either fantasy or 40k futuristic forces, seeing sort of how the humans work is essential, and I think it is a very, very good thing that they are expanding on that, because it's just an area I thought was very lacking when it came to Age of Sigmar. But I really wanted to focus on the 40k side. So thanks again for watching. Please comment, share, like and subscribe. If there's anything there I was maybe wrong about, I did quote a few dates that I may have not been 100% on, but I'm pretty sure on some of them. Let me know. What are your thoughts? Overall, I think people are being quite positive. Seeing Firstborn to a degree with the Terminators, people were absolutely delighted with. Seeing Tyranids take a centre stage is something I think people are very, very pleased to see as well. And of course the line, and generally the consensus seems to be people like the model. So thanks again, and we'll see you on our Tabletop Assault Battle Reports.